Hi guys, welcome to our first lesson of Geometry Part A, solving multi-step equations. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to solve a multi-step equation and use the Desmos graphing calculator to verify those answers. So what we're going to do is we're going to solve each of the following equations, writing our answer in simplest fraction form whenever that's necessary. So in our first problem, we have 3 parentheses y plus 7 equals 24. So we're going to write that down. We have it on our note outline. And now we're going to talk about the steps to solve this. Well, if we remember from Algebra 1, we should distribute that 3 to the y and the 7. So when we do that, we get 3 times y, which is 3y, and 3 times 7, which is 21. The 24 doesn't get multiplied by 3 because it's not part of the group. So that's our distributive property. Now we have to undo the adding of 21, which means the opposite of that is to subtract. So we're going to subtract 21 from both sides. And when we do, we reduce it to get 3y equals 3. That is our substitution or simplifying property. Now, after we've done this, our goal is to still isolate that y. So we're going to divide by 3. And when we divide 3y by 3, we get y. And when we divide 3 by 3, we get 1. And that's our division property of equality, followed by our substitution or simplifying property. So make sure when you're writing this down that you're writing all those steps there. You don't necessarily have to write the properties yet. We're going to get into properties a little bit later, but I wanted to bring those up to just kind of remind us that there is a justification for what we're doing when we're solving these equations. So on our next one, when we do this, we have negative 5x plus 6 equals negative 7x minus 2. So we want to get the x's to one side. We have no distributing here, and we have no like terms on the same side. So we're going to get the x's to the same side by adding 7x. When we do that, that's addition property, because we're adding the same thing to both sides to keep it equal. So then that gives me 2x plus 6 equals negative 2 when I reduce, or combine my like terms by substitution property. I then want to move that 6 to the other side, so I'm going to subtract it, and that reduces to 2x equals negative 8. Again, I'm going to divide to get rid of that coefficient of that x, and I get x equals negative 4 when I do that. Again, I'm doing that division property and then simplifying with substitution. So make sure, again, you've written down all your work, because this is the work evidence I want to see when you are solving these equations by hand this week. Now, on this problem right here, we have a fraction. And our first step when we have a fraction is not to freak out because there's a fraction, but to get rid of said fraction. So we're going to multiply by the denominator, which is 2. And when I do that, I multiply 2 times 5 to get 10, and 7 halves times 2 cancels out the 2's and just leaves me with 7. So I end up with 10 equals 7 parentheses 3x plus 2. Now from here, I have a multi-step equation. I can distribute to get 10 equals 21x plus 14. I then can subtract that 14, and that gives me negative 4 equals 21x. And then I divide by 21 to get rid of that coefficient. And when I divide negative 4 by 21, it doesn't simplify any, so we leave it in simplest fraction form as negative 4 over 21. And that's our final answer. So it is okay to get fractions when you are doing this reducing. All right, so doing the same thing here, we have another fraction. So again, our first step is to get rid of that fraction. Multiply by that denominator. So we're going to multiply 1 times 3 and 5/3 times 3. So 3 times 1 gives me 3. And then the 5/3 and the 3's cancel and leave me with just a 5 on the outside. So I have 3 equals 5, parentheses 4x minus 3 when I simplify. I'm now going to distribute that 5. So I have 3 equals 20x minus 15. We are undoing the subtraction, so we're going to add 15 to both sides. And that's going to give me 18 equals 20x. And then I'm going to divide by 20. And when I divide by 20, this does reduce, so I must put it in simplest fraction form because 18 and 20 have a common factor of 2. So 18 divided by 2 is 9, and 20 divided by 2 is 10, so we end up with 9 over 10. If you're not good at that reducing, remember you can throw it into your Desmos graphing calculator to reduce and get 18 over 20 gives us 9 over 10. All right, so what if we get one like this, where we have a lot of things, a lot of terms, and we are going to distribute first? Well, that's what I'm going to start with, is distributing. So I get 8x minus 4, and everything else stayed the same. So I still have plus 4x, I still have minus 4, and I still have equals negative 32. I then combine my like terms. 8x plus 4x are going to go together, and negative 4 and negative 4 are going to go together. So I've rearranged them so they're side by side. That's our commutative property. Remember, when we move objects around on the same side, that's commutative property. It changes the order. So now I can combine those like terms since they're beside each other, and I get 12x minus 8 equals negative 32. I'm going to get rid of the minus 8 by adding. And so when I do that, when I reduce, I get 12x equals negative 24. And then when I divide by 12, I get x equals negative 2. And that's our final answer. Again, I'm showing all the steps and writing down my properties just so I get in that habit of justifying, because justification in geometry is going to be a super important process. All right, so on our example here, we have this negative 1 kind of hanging out. And so we are taking this negative 1 and we're distributing it to negative 3 and to positive 3. So when I do that, I get 6x staying the same. Negative times a negative gives me a positive. A negative times a positive gives me a negative. Everybody else back here stayed the same because they were not a part of that parentheses. And now we are going to combine those like terms because 6x and 3x are on the same side. So that gives us 9x minus 3 equals negative 3 plus 4x. I then move my other x to the other side, so I'm going to subtract 4x, and I get 5x minus 3 equals negative 3, because these 4x's canceled, and I just have that negative 3 left. Now I'm going to add 3 to both sides, and that's going to give me 5x equals 0. So from here, I'm going to divide by 5, and 0 divided by 5 gives me 0. So my final answer is x equals 0. Remember, this is different from saying no solutions, because 0 is a number. That is one solution. When we get something that's a false statement, like 3 equals negative 3, that's when we have no real solutions. So make sure you don't confuse the two. So hopefully you understood that lesson. Go ahead and answer your check for understanding questions, and then you can move on to your next graded practice or mastery check.